Let's call him John. John is currently on a mission to eliminate a target who, according to reports, is supposed to arrive at a room in the hotel right across from him. For the past 5 days, John has been patiently waiting in a rented room in an empty building so he can take down his target from a distance. John isn't an ordinary criminal, but a highly professional killer known for his attention to detail, clean work, and strict discipline. The proof of this is that even after 5 days have passed and there's still no sign of the target, he continues to wait patiently. John wears a watch on his wrist that measures his heart rate, and this is extremely important to him because knowing and controlling his body as functions matters greatly for a perfect shot. Despite being in this dangerous profession for many years, John has never made a mistake and has never been caught. Even the police have never been able to trace any of his missions. John's ability to sit silently for hours, just waiting for his target. This work is clearly not for those who get restless or bored easily, because such work requires stone-like patience that only a few special people possess. John himself believes he's not a special or ordinary person. It's just that his focus, responsibility, and determination are different from others. Occasionally, John does yoga to relieve his body's stiffness and listens to Kishore Kumar's songs to kill the boredom. After all, he's human too, and he must feel tired and bored. After spending considerable time this way, he deliberately disguises himself as a German tourist and goes out to get food. He changed his appearance because Parisians prefer not to talk to German tourists, and this helps him hide his identity. This clearly shows that John has planned every little detail very carefully. He even sprays a special liquid on the wash basin after brushing his teeth or washing his hands, so that not a trace of his DNA remains there, making it impossible for the police to find him. On the 5th night, John feels that perhaps the target won't come today either, so he decides to sleep for a while. But when he wakes up, he sees that cleaning is underway in the room across from him. This was a sign that the target was about to arrive. John immediately prepares his long-range sniper rifle and gets ready. Just then, a woman enters the room across from him, probably sent for the target's entertainment. Meanwhile, John clears his eyes with eye drops and plays music to keep his mind calm. Finally, the target enters the room. John's finger is on the trigger. The aim is perfectly accurate, but he doesn't shoot. He sees that his heart rate is at 101, so he waits for his heartbeat to reach exactly 60, so there won't be even the slightest mistake. After remaining calm for a while, when his heart rate becomes normal, he pulls the trigger at the right moment. But today, for the first time, John failed in his mission. Without wasting a moment, he immediately packed all his belongings, and before the security guards could arrive, he vanished. After 5 days of long waiting, John had to face the bitter truth that years of profession don't guarantee success every time. For the first time, panic and tension were clearly visible on John's face as he fled quickly, avoiding police cars. After reaching some distance, he started erasing evidence. He threw his helmet into the river, completely shaved off his beard and mustache, and dumped his pistol in a trash can. Instead of correcting his mistake, John thought it best to flee Paris. At the airport, seeing the security and dogs, his heartbeat increased again, forcing him to go back to the restroom and wash his face to calm himself down. Right at that moment, he receives a call from his agency, informing him that the client is extremely angry about the mission's failure and has given John one chance to go back and eliminate the target somehow. But John didn't want to take any more risks. He thought it best to leave Paris to save his life. Throughout the journey, John kept his eyes on every passenger. He became suspicious of a man wearing glasses and a suit who looked exactly like John. He feared he had now become prey himself. Perhaps the client, his own agency, or the target's men were after him. Being cautious, John stopped in another country and decided to stay at a hotel there for the night. But even in the hotel room, his fear didn't subside. For his safety, he placed glass cups behind the door so that if anyone entered, there would be a sound, and he sat up all night with a knife in his hand. The next morning, John headed straight to his home in Santo Domingo, America. After landing at the airport, he had to travel a long distance to reach his secret hideout, which was far from the city's noise. But as soon as he reached his house gate, he was shocked. There were footprints on the ground and many cigarette butts scattered around. It was clear that a stranger had entered his area. John immediately pulled out his pistol and ran inside. John was horrified when he saw that his house was completely destroyed and bloodstains were scattered everywhere. He wasn't worried about his house or wealth. He was concerned about his beloved wife, who was alone. Upon contacting the police, he learned that his wife was admitted to the ICU because an unknown attacker had made a life-threatening assault on her. Reaching the hospital, John's heart sank. His wife's face was swollen, and she had stitches in several places. John's brother-in-law, who was present there, told him that there were two attackers, a man and a woman who came in a green taxi with a yellow logo. They had threatened that if his wife didn't tell the truth, they would make her condition even worse. When John's wife regained consciousness, her silence said it all. She knew about John's real work, but even at the risk of her life, she kept John's identity secret. Her love for her husband was so great that she didn't open her mouth until her dying breath. Seeing his wife's condition, the fire of revenge ignited within John. He dug up the ground in his house's courtyard and took out all the equipment he used for work. Based on the taxi information he got from his brother-in-law, John began searching for that specific vehicle throughout the city. After a day's hard work, he finally found that taxi. He followed the driver and tracked him to the taxi company's head office. From there, he located the driver who was on duty on the day of the incident. Then John, posing as a passenger, sat in that driver's taxi and took him at gunpoint to a deserted place. The driver nervously told him that those two passengers seemed ordinary. The woman was thin, and the man was tall, broad, and looked fierce. After getting all the information, John killed the driver without hesitation so that no witness would remain alive. From the driver's words, John understood that these attackers weren't ordinary thugs, but professional killers like himself. After this, John went to his next destination, New Orleans, where his agency's headquarters was located. Upon arriving there, John rented a van and collected necessary items from his secret hideout like fake IDs, weapons, and fake license plates. A dangerous plan was running through John's mind. He also bought a large trash bin used for cleaning and some other supplies. Now his intention was absolutely clear. He was going to disguise himself as a cleaning worker and enter the very building of his agency where this whole game had started. Shortly after, taking advantage of a courier boy, John, disguised as a garbage collector, very cleverly entered the building. And as soon as the courier left and the corridor became empty, John directly entered the private office of the lawyer who ran his agency. This lawyer, who took contracts for wealthy clients. John suspected that this lawyer was behind the attack on his wife. He started interrogation without wasting time. To make him talk, John used a nail gun and fired 3 nails into the lawyer's chest. But until his last breath, the lawyer remained stubborn and told him nothing. Now John's next target was the lawyer's assistant, who turned out to be smarter and agreed to give John the complete data of those 2 killers, which was safely kept at her home. But here the assistant placed a condition before John. She knew that John wouldn't leave her alive, but she wanted her death to look like an accident. She wanted her insurance money to go to her children so their future would be secure. Hearing this, a strange turmoil arose in John's mind. On one hand, his principle says don't sympathize. Sympathy is weakness. But as a father, the humanity within him awakened. Finally, He gave her a chance to take him to her house and show him the documents. Now, to erase evidence, John put the lawyer's body in the large trash bin and very calmly got into the elevator. There were 2 other people in the elevator, one of whom jokingly said, "There isn't a body in that bin, is there?" Little did he know his joke was reality. Reaching the assistant's house, John obtained those papers. Keeping his promise, John broke the assistant's neck near the stairs so that her death would look like an accident from falling. After this, John left for another city to dispose of the lawyer's body, where he threw the evidence into the ocean and dumped the lawyer's body under a deserted bridge where it was impossible for the police to reach. Now John's next stop was Florida, where one of those 2 attackers lived. Upon arriving there, John saw that the man was exactly as the taxi driver had described: tall, broad, fierce-looking face, and with a fierce pit bull dog. John waited for the right time, and as soon as it was midnight and the man fell into deep sleep, John entered with his pistol. But the work wasn't as easy as he thought. Although John might have been weaker than that fierce attacker in terms of strength and body build, due to John's agility and tactics, the man was badly injured. But as soon as John's work was done, the man's pet pit bulldog lunged at John to avenge its master's death. John quickly ran and closed the mesh door, and then, to erase all evidence from the area, he threw a Molotov cocktail there. And this is how one of his enemies was eliminated. Now it was time for New York, where that second culprit lived, the thin woman who was involved in torturing his wife. Anyone could have made the mistake of considering her weak, but in reality, she was a famous and fierce contract killer, and her name was quite big in the world of crime. But John didn't care about these things or her fame. John proved his fearlessness when he cornered that woman inside a restaurant in a crowded gathering. The woman was eating alone. As soon as John sat on the chair across from her and showed her his pistol, that expert killer was completely stunned. She was shocked, as if she had no words left to say. She knew that John had come to avenge his wife. Seeing her death before her, she ordered the restaurant's most expensive wine as her last wish. At the same time, making a last attempt to save herself, she clarified that she didn't even touch his wife. She kept begging like this, making long excuses. But John remained silent like a stone statue. On the way, that woman suddenly slipped and reached out for help. For a moment, it seemed that perhaps John might show mercy. But then John remembered his old principle: don't trust anyone and don't show mercy. Then, as soon as she reached out for help, John shot her in the head without wasting a moment. She had a hidden knife in her left hand with which she was about to attack John, but John's alertness saved him from the jaws of death once again. A wealthy businessman who had given John a contract to remove his business rival from the way. And this wasn't new for John. From politics to business, John had done many such disgusting jobs. He still remembers when he threw acid on a person, and to this day, the police haven't even touched him. Anyway, John went straight to the client's luxurious apartment. There he stole the cleaning worker's keys, opened the client's locker, and copied his card's data. The client didn't even get wind of the fact that the key to his house was now with John. When the client returned to his house, seeing John standing there with a pistol in hand, the ground slipped from under his feet. At first, he thought this was some robber, but he soon understood that this was the same killer he had hired for work. Like the woman, the client also blamed everything on the dead lawyer, meaning his agency. John realized that all this was the result of not being able to kill the target. Now, because the lawyer was already dead, and the client had no clue about John's real identity, John decided to leave him alive. But before leaving, he gave such a threat that shook the client's soul. John said that if he ever tried to find him, John would kill him in such a way that no one would be able to guess. The client was terribly scared, and this matter ended there. A few days later, we see John in his own house making coffee for his wife, who has now completely recovered. And what will John do next? Will he continue the work of killing or sell Sunday oil? Nobody knows. In fact, throughout the entire film, his real name wasn't even revealed. John is just a fictional name that I used to tell you the story. Anyway, there's a very big lesson hidden in this story, patience. The thing that John displayed by staying in a room for 24 hours without moving for 5 days. Even though his profession was wrong and can never be justified, his focus and patience are praiseworthy. As it has been said, God is with those who are patient. So let's meet with another story. Take care. Bye-bye.